What's up, guys? Alright, today I want to talk to you about a question that I get asked a lot. Probably the most common message I get is, hey, I'm looking for a new duck call because all my duck calls stick. And the real answer to that is, I would love to sell you a duck call, but if all your other duck calls stick, in a week you're going to message me and say, this is a piece of junk, this call sticks too. 9 times out of 10, it is your fault and not the call's fault, unfortunately. But there are a few things that we can do to try and minimize the sticking. The first thing, before we even get going, is just make sure your call's clean. If there's dirt or, pieces of chew or honey buns or something all stuck up between your reed and your tone board, it's going to cause you problems. So pull your reeds out, give the tone board and your reeds a good cleaning, make sure there's no gunk built up on anything, put it back together, let it dry, give it a run. And most of the time that's going to fix your problems. But if that doesn't work, there's a few things that we can try. The first thing is, when you first got the call, it was working great, and then after a season or two it started sticking, your cork's probably worn out. The cork only has so many wet and dry cycles. You blow it and it gets soaked and then it dries out. You blow it, it gets soaked and it dries out. It can only do that so many times and it starts to break down and shrink. So the first thing you need to do is check your cork, replace your cork, make sure everything's good. Now after you've done that and you're still sticking the call, or if you've just got a couple duck calls and you're sticking them, the first point we need to touch on is what your tongue's doing when you're calling. A lot of guys, most guys, use a T sound to break off their notes. With a feed call, tick, 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 tick. And I'm no doctor, but what I've found from reading online is the spit is produced underneath of your tongue. When you raise your tongue up, it's telling those spit glands to make more spit. So we need to keep our tongue down as much as possible to keep those spit glands closed off. So instead of using a T sound to break your notes, try keeping your tongue anchored behind your bottom teeth and use a K sound. And when you do that, you'll notice that your tongue stays behind your bottom teeth, keeping your spit glands closed. So that will help a ton with keeping the spit to a minimum and keeping what spit is in your mouth inside your mouth and not going into the call. Because when you're doing a T sound, your tongue's flapping around like this and it's just flowing that spit right into the call. So we need to keep our tongue anchored behind our bottom teeth and try using a K sound to break your notes. All right, now that we've got the call cleaned, we've checked our cork, and we are using our tongue with a K sound instead of a T sound, the next thing we can try is paying attention to the orientation of the reeds. Now, instead of blowing the call with the tone board down and the reeds facing up, that way when you're blowing into the call and the spit's running down the barrel, it's getting up on the tone board and going through the call. Try it with the reeds facing down and the tone board facing up. So as you're blowing into the call, the spit's running down the barrel and it goes and collects down by the cork. Now, this is going to cause you problems if you're just constantly, blowing for an extended period of time. But if you call for a few minutes, then you get a few minutes break, then you call for a few minutes and get a few minutes break. During those breaks, make sure when it's on your lanyard that your call's hanging upside down with your insert up and your barrel facing down. That way, all that spit can run out of there, and then the next time you pick up your call, you've got a clean slate with no spit in there. Now, if none of that's working for you, another thing we can try is pull all your reeds out and get like some chapstick, works good, or some Rain-X or some product like that, and just give a nice coat to the tone board, bottom of your reeds, and then you don't want it to be on there too thick. Wipe it off, and it'll leave a little residue on there, and that residue is all we're looking for. Make sure it's not stuck in the front of your tone channel. You don't want any buildup anywhere. We just want a little oily coating, and that's going to help because spit's going to get into the call, and the main objective is getting it through the call. So if it doesn't want to stick to these reeds or this tone board, then it'll just go right on through. And that helps a ton. All right, for this next part, this is a huge disclaimer. Do not do this. If you do, you are liable to screw up your call. But if none of those other things worked and you're willing to take the chance, here's some things you can try. Tone board modifications are never a good thing to do, especially if you don't know what you're doing. but it can help. And if it's a risk that you're willing to take, then I'm going to show you. But don't call me and say, I screwed up my tone board. So the first thing that we can do on the tone board, where the tone board drops down into the tone channel, is a 90 degree drop right there. And I take like a fingernail file. I use this little metal file and just put a little bevel right on that edge. Just a little bit on both sides. Just bevel it just a little bit. And that makes the spit go down into the tone channel a lot easier. Because like I said, we're trying to get the spit through the call. So that helps the spit get from the tone board down into the tone channel and out the back of the insert. So file just a little bit, put it back together, blow it, see if it sticks. You can always take off more. You cannot put it back on once it's off. So do a little bit, try it, do a little bit, try it, do a little bit, try it. So let's say you've done that. That's not working. Another thing we can try is I take a sharp, like X-Acto knife is what I use. You can use a razor blade or anything like that that's extra sharp. And just make a little slice in the middle of the tone board, right like that, and then right like that on the other side. That creates a little channel. It cuts a channel down the middle and it pushes the edges up just a little bit, so it creates a little ridge. And that will keep a little bit more separation between the reed and the tone board, and that little channel will allow air to get underneath of it. And with bumping that up, that's definitely going to change the sound of your call. It's going to add a little bit of rasp, and it's going to take a little bit of the bottom end away. It's going to take more air on the bottom end. At least that's what it does on the CQ2. I mean, all tone boards are different, but that's what it does to mine. And something you can do to, if you do a little bit too much, just a quick few swipes with a file will smooth that back out. You still get the groove for the air to go under, but it takes that little ridge off there. So if you don't like how it makes it sound, you can take that off with just a few strokes of a fine file. And I mean just a little bit. Tone boards are very sensitive. A few strokes of a file here, a few strokes of a file there changes it drastically. So small is better. Take a little bit, try it. Take a little bit, try it. You can always take more off. You cannot put more on, and you can ruin a tone board in a hurry. So that's what I got on fixing a duck call that's sticking from spit. Try everything you can before you do any tone board modifications. Try drinking water. Try not drinking things with a ton of sugar in them. Try the Rain-X. Try the chapstick. Turn your call upside down and blow it like that. Clean it out. Do everything you can to avoid tone board modifications. But if it comes down to it and you feel confident in trying it, or you don't care taking the risk to ruin your call, then maybe it'll work for you. But that's all I got for today. Hope it helped. Like, subscribe, comment. You know the drill. Have a great one.